Black stuff.
Let me take a minute just to give some praise to the dopest spot in the Milky Way. We make the universe hot with the music we make, with the dopest thing in all the outer space. Our women are lovely, the music is dope. Most of all, we never lost our hope, cause living on the earth a perplexion mind. All the lights in the sky are a distant time. Swear if we could get there, we make it rise. So we blaze the pines, kick the rounds, try to keep our minds on the go like vines. And I'm known as a flow guy. Tempo is automatic like a robot. Say that you know when I mean you know not. It's come and roll with the pro squad. We're intergalactic, we wander aimless. We're sleeping out and over where our bodies are weightless. Cruising out of space, yeah, we got our own spaceship. A ship like stasis, so we stay blazing. The fact that we're alive, nothing less than amazing. Let me tell you what the golden rule of space is. A W2, why'd you like me? Roll with what you got, not what you wish you could bring. We'll be a shining light, we'll be your beacon. So come with us and we can frequent our level of a secret. Ario, he keeps the beat in sequence. When I say green, no, I don't mean bills. Only got my life, yo, live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get truth. Sit back, relax, blow your smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know I got you. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Now when I say green, no, it don't mean bills. Yeah, you only got one life, so live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Sit back, relax, blow your smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know I got you. Get green, get love, get free, get truth. Yo, we're alive with hope and we'll climb the ropes. Only rich motherfuckers on no private boats, man. Fuck dirty bastards, oceans of plastic. We not gonna sit by, accept disaster. We bounce from earth, can't take the fake shit. Fuck superstars, cars, diamonds, and facelifts. Fuck complacence, we flip the script and take it back to basics. Don't fear truth, now the facts will face it. So here we go, let's take a ride. Cruising kinda slow with the speed of light. If your planet adds rings, then we'll take a slide. No need for fear, we don't speak goodbyes. Always come around like the beach is tide. We stay fly on the green supply. Got what you need just to free your mind. Now we on the move like a wave of truth. Pass me that mic, I'll show you what we do. We bring a spark of light when we rock a mic. Steady rockin' rhymes at the speed of light. Now when I say green, no, it don't mean bills. Only got one life, yo, live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Sit back, relax, and blow your smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know I got you. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Yeah, get green, get love, get free, get true. When I say green, no, it don't mean bills. Yeah, you only got one life, so live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Sit back, relax, play smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know I got you. Get green, get love, get free, get truth.
Black stuff.
Let me take a minute just to give some praise to the dopest spot in the Milky Way. We make the universe hot with the music we make, with the dopest thing in all the outer space. Our women are lovely, the music is dope. Most of all, we never lost our hope, cause living on the earth a perplexion mind. All the lights in the sky are a distant time. Swear if we could get there, we make it rise. So we blaze the pines, kick the rounds, try to keep our minds on the go like vines. And I'm known as a flow guy. Tempo is automatic like a robot. Say that you know when I mean you know not. It's come and roll with the pro squad. We're intergalactic, we wander aimless. We're sleeping out and over where our bodies are weightless. Cruising out of space, yeah, we got our own spaceship. A ship like stasis, so we stay blazing. The fact that we're alive, nothing less than amazing. Let me tell you what the golden rule of space is. A W2, why'd you like me? Roll with what you got, not what you wish you could bring. We'll be a shining light, we'll be your beacon. So come with us and we can frequent our level of a secret. Ario, he keeps the beat in sequence. When I say green, no, it don't mean bills. Only got one life, yo, live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Sit back, relax, blow your smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know I got you. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Now when I say green, no, it don't mean bills. Yeah, you only got one life, so live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Sit back, relax, blow your smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know I got you. Get green, get love, get free, get truth. Yo, we're alive with hope and we'll climb the ropes. Only rich motherfuckers on no private boats, man. Fuck dirty bastards, oceans of plastic. We not gonna sit by, accept disaster. We bounce from earth, can't take the fake shit. Fuck superstars, cars, diamonds, and facelifts. Fuck complacence, we flip the script and take it back to basics. Don't fear truth, now the facts will face it. So here we go, let's take a ride. Cruising kinda slow with the speed of light. If your planet has rings, then we'll take a slide. No need for fear, we don't speak goodbyes. Always come around like the beach is tide. We stay fly on the green supply. Got what you need just to free your mind. Now we on the move like a wave of truth. Pass me that mic, I'll show you what we do. We bring a spark of life when we rock a mic. Steady rockin' rhymes at the speed of light. Now when I say green, no it don't mean bills. Only got one life, yo, live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Sit back, relax, and bleed smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know what got you. Get green, get love, get free, get truth. Yeah, get green, get love, get free, get truth. When I say green, no it don't mean bills. Yeah, you only got one life, so live your life real. Get green, get love, get free, get true. Sit back, relax, blaze smoke to the roof. If you got hope, then you know what got you. Get green, get love, get free, get truth.
What's good, everybody? I was really hoping that I'd have a couple of special guests in here tonight because they were having a great conversation about what I wanted to talk about this evening, just yesterday. But there's been so much that's gone on today. We could start basically anywhere. I don't know if anybody saw or not, but Hunter Biden was indicted and pled guilty to well, it really doesn't matter because he's not going to serve any time whatsoever. But apparently he owed $1.2 million in taxes for the fraud that he had committed. But that's not really that big of a deal, especially when you have an ex-president who had documents just like every other president ever has, and he didn't declassify them, so he's not really in violation of any laws, but that's irrelevant. They're going to throw the book at him. The whole point of bringing any of that up is that we're supposed to be a nation that's ruled by laws. So, and if laws are not applied evenly, then you don't really have any. Like they just don't exist. You're really falling into what they've been trying to turn us into from the beginning anyway, which is a democracy, and democracies will always burn out. That's mob rule. That's majority rules. It's two wolves and one sheep voting on what's for dinner. And as long as we allow ourselves to continually put into that category, the further and further away we go from the original intention of this republic, which was something special that hadn't really happened before. It was the first time where the governed were also the governors. Somewhere along the lines, the people who we'll call them the elite class, have basically become our betters. They've always believed that they were our betters, but we just made sure that they knew it. And the way we did that is by allowing them to take control, literally, of everything. We've gotten to a point now where we no longer control really anything about our lives, and we don't even really have a say in the laws that we are governed by. And again, in this form of government, we are supposed to be ruled by the consent of the governed. And I don't know, I can name a whole bunch of laws that they've passed over the past 10, 15 years that I personally don't agree with. I don't know anybody else who really agrees with them. I can tell you a majority of people don't agree with them, and it's irrelevant because their representatives aren't asking them. And they're not asking you because they're not afraid of you. They're not afraid of what you could do to them because at this point you can't. And as long as we continue to be in a situation where we can't uh, be the check or the balance to stop us from falling into tyranny, then there's really no hope. I really hope that we aren't at that point completely. I feel us steamroll into it, but that doesn't mean it's all lost. I do feel like if people can just understand what you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be and what this country is supposed to be, then I think that we can actually get past it. I'm not going to be staying on too terribly long. In fact, if I don't have anybody who's going to be coming up anytime soon, this is going to be a really short one. But yeah, our country's been taken over, and it was actually taken over a long time ago. It's just the real implementation of it hasn't really been as forthcoming as it is now. At this point, like I said, it's snowballed so much that it's become a monster. But in 1913, when they passed the Federal Reserve Act, Woodrow Wilson did that. You can thank him for basically giving our country away without a bullet fired. At that point in our nation, again, we, the governed, were still the governors. And as you know, per the Constitution, the Congress is supposed to be in charge of the issuance of currency and everything that goes along with it. Well, we, the people, were the Congress. The minute we instituted a Federal Reserve, a privately owned, foreign owned bank, that took that right away from us. We no longer control the money. And I don't know if life is different for you in some way, but for me, it's always been money rules the world. He who makes the gold makes the rules. That's the real golden rule. So, as long as they controlled the money, they controlled literally everything. And I've never been free. You've never been free. What's up, Dakota? I see you in there. If you want to come up, I did post a link. I'd be more than happy to have somebody come up and converse with me a little bit. No matter what, I'm not staying on terribly long. I don't feel well. My lady's super sick. But I did feel like it was a necessary conversation to have. But if nobody's really willing to have it with me, there's no point in me staying on too terribly long anyway. But here, let me post that up real quick so that anybody else can see it too. But yeah, and the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment is supposed to be the stopgap. That is supposed to be our way to make sure that we don't fall into tyranny. The thing is, though, is that even that has been whittled down and whittled down. Now they can tell you what kinds of guns you can have. They can tell you all, like, when you can have it, all kinds of ridiculous bullshit. I don't read my pocket constitution every single day, but I'm pretty confident the last time I read it, it said that right specifically shall not be infringed upon. And I'm pretty sure that means at all. So I don't understand why everybody, again, we're all just okay. It's this incremental creep, and it creeps on everything. We don't have militias anymore. And the reason we don't is because they gave us the National Guard. Ironically, the government, whom we are supposed to have militias in order to defend ourselves against, the government now controls our quote unquote militias as the National Guard. In fact, you're not even really allowed to set one up. And if you do, they'll neuter it. And if it's not neutered and it grows, well, then they're just going to co-opt it and turn it into something that it was never meant to be. So, and Dakota, you're absolutely right. The whole feminization, it's not just a feminization, actually. It's deeper than that. because now they're getting rid of objective truth. We've gotten to a point now where objective truth no longer exists. And if you talk about objective truth, well, you're a conspiracy theorist or you're a alt-right Nazi. I mean, like I can go on and on with all the bullshit that they basically put on people who just, I don't know, crave normalcy. At the end of the day, most people, and I don't mean just most people that I talk to or most people in our group, I mean most people in general just want to be left alone. I want to live my life, do what the hell I want to do, and be left alone. And that will never happen as long as we continue to go down this road, the road to tyranny. I mean, it's crazy. And you're right. One of the bigger reasons that we don't want to have strong men, or I mean, we do, but they don't want us to, is because all it takes for tyranny to really blossom is for good men to be quiet and do nothing. So if you take the man out of the equation, who's there to protect anybody? So I don't know. Dakota, do you want to click that link and jump up? You don't have to cam up or anything. I'm clearly not. But you're right. They do get away with what we allow. But again, we've been conditioned to allow more than the generation before us and the one before us and the one before us because we've all been slaves our entire lives and never known a real freedom. See, we think that we're free because we have things or we can make small decisions that don't really affect anything outside of our own purview. But that's not freedom. We have a freedom to choose with the choices made available to us. And it's usually a false choice to begin with. And you can say that we democratically elect our leaders. That's bullshit. We get to choose between the ones that they offer us, which isn't really a choice. Now, on a very, very local level, sure, we can make those choices, but that's a very, very local level, and those people will never reach the higher areas because they're not lawyers or just a part of the machine. So, yeah. And like Tom Morello, who used to rage against the machine, now tells us we should all rage for the machine. So that's super cool too. Yeah, I get it, man. And it's not for everybody, but like I said, I'm not one to sit and monologue for hours. So, you know, it's funny that you talk about that too. I do think that voting is important, but not the way it used to be, if that makes sense. I honestly feel like the only way it could become something real again would be if we all, as a people, collectively, no one voted. That'd be the only way to actually fix it. Because anything they give us at that point shows that it's bullshit. But unfortunately, we'll never get there. I mean, shit, you can't get 100% of any group of people to do anything. So, because there's always that one asshole. And generally, I mean, shit, half the time I'm that one asshole. Just because I don't like to be a part of a group. So, yeah, and I probably will, man. But like I said, I wanted to at least jump on and say something because I just don't understand how we've gotten here and how nobody really noticed. Well, and actually, you know, the funny part is that I do. I just don't want to sit here and again, I don't want to monologue about it. I'd like to breach that conversation with somebody. Because I don't like to feel like I'm just talking to myself, you know what I mean? But you ever want to really look into why people have become far more docile and open to suggestion, the first place to look is hydrofluorosilicic acid. That's what they put in your water supply, and they say that they do that to help with cavities. even though drinking, they call it fluoride. It's not fluoride. There is an element called fluoride, and there is a bit of fluoride in hydrofluorosilicic acid, but that doesn't make it fluoride. It's a very caustic byproduct of the fertilizer industry. And I don't know, the first country to ever start putting it in their water supply was Stalin. Stalin in Russia. He did that in 1940 because, again, they realized that it made people less likely to resist, more open to suggestion, and basically docile. Um, but yeah, oh, and Big Pharma is a big part of that too, because hydrofluorosilicic acid isn't the only thing they're putting in your water. Um, for some reason, the name of it's escaping me, but there are antidepressants in your water currently. And if anybody wants to say, oh, well, the parts per million are so low, it can't be that big of a deal. When it comes to, we'll call it fluoride. Hey, Roots, jump up real quick. I got the thing at the top. If anybody wants to tell you that fluoride, we'll call it fluoride for these purposes, isn't that big of a deal because of the parts per million, it's bullshit. Fluoride or hydrofluorosilicic acid bioaccumulates, so it always stays in your body. It also works as an adjuvant for heavy metals. So you're not just getting, no, not Prozac, that's lithium. Lithium is what I was looking for. Thanks for saying the wrong one so I could get to the right one. But yeah, you can't control the dose. That was the other thing I was going to say. And when it comes to fluoride, it's not just that you're ingesting it. It also seeps through your skin while you're showering. It's on your clothing. It's on your vegetables. It's everything and everywhere. So again, you can't control the dose. That's no problem, man. Take your time. But yeah, so people can say the parts per million make a difference. It really doesn't. Because again, you didn't have my permission to fucking drug me. So my recommendation is get a whole house purifier, not just under your sink. Purify every bit of your water, reverse osmosis. I also do charcoal filters on top of the reverse osmosis, but that's because I'm a weirdo. But I'm not going to take that shit, and I'm not going to sit here and be docile. But you look around and you see all these quote unquote zombies walking around like, whoa, okie doke. Oh, you see what happened? Okie doke. It's not just okie doke. And that's my problem. We currently have a dude sitting at the White House who, okay, let's run through it real quick. This was the least popular candidate in the history of the United States of America that didn't campaign, that chose as a running mate the least popular candidate in their party, who got 0.1% of the vote in the primaries. This is the least likely presidential candidate of all time. And let me qualify that. In 88, he lost in the primaries and actually had to get out because of plagiarism, but he lost to Walter fucking Mondale, who lost in the biggest landslide in American history in the presidential election. So this dude is now your president. But how did we get there? I mean, did people vote for him? I assume there's like 5 or 6 people that actually voted for him. I can't find them. I'm sure that they exist. But when you have an incumbent president who gets the most votes ever and the most votes by an incumbent ever and wins all of the, the bellwether counties, all of them but one. He won every single bellwether county except for one and lost the election. How's that even possible? You might ask. Well, it's actually super simple. In 2016, the fix was in for Hillary, and they really thought they had it in the bag. Not that they thought that they would win. They didn't give a shit. They thought they already had it settled. They didn't expect people to actually go out and vote for this dude. So he basically beat them. They thought they had enough to cheat in the right areas. And when I say cheat, I don't mean that they're filling out fake ballots necessarily, but they are in a sense. Because what they're doing is they're going and they're grabbing these ballots from old people in old folks' homes, and they're either filling it out for them or forcing them to fill it out the way they want. And then they're taking those, and taking them to the ballot drop boxes, mailing them in, that sort of thing. In 2016, they just didn't cheat enough, so they knew this time it had to be large, but they couldn't leave it up to chance this time, and that's why this time they waited, saw how many they needed, said, "Oh, you know what? We're done counting for the evening." And so everybody who's watching, you guys can leave. And now that they're gone, we can pull out these boxes of all these fake ass votes that the people whose names are on them don't even know that they're voting. And we'll get our guy in. So that's how you ended up with a dude that can barely even understand his own name, barely speaks the language, and really has been a piece of shit his entire life. And his entire career, he's been one of the most corrupt assholes that ever walked the fucking face of the planet. Leader of the Biden crime family, and that's now your commander in chief. So super, super, super great times. And clearly, that wasn't the will of the people. Clearly, he didn't actually win. But everybody's just like, okay. Guess we have to deal with it. I haven't looked up Mark Robinson. I don't really pay attention to North Carolina in general, but yeah, no, man. So everybody's walking around all zombie-like, and the thing is they don't even realize it. But think of the kind of shit that we're okay with. That if I had told you just 15 years ago that we'd have drag queens fucking shaking their buttholes in front of little kindergartners and shit and everybody be okay with it, you'd tell me I was fucking nuts. You'd tell me, dude, come on, like you're being a little bit of a conspiracy theorist at this point. But that's really happening. And people are like, not only okay with it, some people are out there fucking caping for it. Like, no, these kids need to see this. So we're hypersexualizing children now, and it's not by accident. We're doing it because the people who are in charge, the people who shouldn't be, but again, I guess it's their divine right because everybody's just allowing it. But those are some sick sons of bitches, and they really like to fucking diddle kids. So all of this is a workup. It's an incremental workup to make you okay with the sexualization of children. Once you're okay with the sexualization of children, you're okay with the idea of sex with children and children having it. So that's the plan. That's what they're doing. And people are just, again, it's the damned okey doke. I've been talking about this shit for 15 years on my Facebook, really anywhere anybody will listen to me. So hold on, what you got here? Yeah, I'll definitely check him out now that you've said something about him. But yeah, 15 years ago. So here's my thing. I don't like groups. I don't like people. I love individuals. Can't stand people. The minute you make yourself a part of a group or identify yourself as a member of a group, I probably don't like you because I don't like the group. But you by yourself, I'll probably enjoy your company and the conversations. So I don't like white people, but I also don't like black people, Mexican people, Chinese people. I don't like straight people. I don't like gay people. I don't like trannies. I don't like quote unquote cisgender people. I mean, that's a fake ass word, but whatever. In fact, actually, if you want to go to that real quick, scientifically, cis and trans are only used in respect to fats. And ironically, trans fats are the bad ones and cis fats are good fats. But I digress. I don't like groups at all. There are people on this planet that are like, I have gay friends that I would die for. I have gay friends that I would kill for. But I don't like gay people as a whole. I don't like them as a group. And I don't like the agenda. But that has nothing to do with whether or not I like gay marriage. I personally was against gay marriage for a huge reason because Now, you try to go back in your mind 15 years ago, but 15 years ago, we were having the conversations about whether or not gay people should be allowed to marry. Now, let me tell you this, marriage is not a right. So they didn't get equal rights when they got the ability to marry each other. That is a right, RITE, of the Christian church. It is not a big R right, as in human right. You don't have the right to marry anybody. So that's number one. But my problem there is the state got involved and handed out licenses. Once you do that, you should be handing those out uh, indiscriminately. So, but the word marriage is separate. It's for something different. If you want to have civil unions where gay couples can claim each other on their taxes and be on each other's insurance and all of that, visit each other in the hospital, all of that is absolutely. I think it's fundamental. I think if you've given your life to somebody, you should be able to claim them on your fucking taxes. That's not my issue. My issue is normalizing it societally because human beings work in cycles. We always have. Historically, we've always fallen under these cycles. Green Lord, I don't know if it's still up there, but I put the link at the top if you want to jump in. I don't know how to pin it to where everybody can see it no matter how many go through, but I digress. So gay marriage, right? The societal normalcy and normalization of homosexuality, that is not progressive. That is actually very regressive. It's happened many times over history. Ancient Rome, I'll say ancient Greece, even though there is like this whole thing. It's not as like blown out the way people think it is, but irrelevant. Ancient Rome, that was the deal. The slippery slope, quote unquote, fallacy. I don't know. Is it a fallacy? Because every slippery slope I've ever seen happens. And we're always looking back at the slippery slope and not forward towards it. So back then, my argument was because people were saying that they were born gay. And again, you're not. For anybody listening, watching, you're not born gay. You're also not born straight. You're not born with a sexual preference because you're not sexual, but also because you're not born with any preferences. I know that we like to add extra weight to sexual preference, like it's something different. But on a biological and psychological level, it is still just a preference like any other. So, and you're not born with those. You learn those throughout your life. There are external stimuli that will make you go one way or another in terms of how you internalize those situations. So, but that was my issue, because if you say that gay people are born that way, then that means that all sexual preference is born in. And if that's the case, you can't stop people who want to have sex with little kids because, I mean, they're born that way. And we have to be inclusive. So that's always been my argument and my argument against. And back then, I have a couple of really close friends who I literally agree with on nothing. But I love to have conversations with them because they at least honestly believe the bullshit that they believe. It's completely wrong. And I mean, it is what it is. But I still love them to death. Anyway, they were telling me I was nuts. It would never be like that. Well, look where we are. We're already to a point, like I said, we're sexualizing these kids. We're giving pedos a completely different name to soften the blow because they're minor attracted persons. What's next? Well, we're going to be okay with it. And then people will openly be having sexual relationships with children. And then after that is bestial. And again, if you want to go back to ancient Rome, Constantine, while he was the emperor of Rome, literally married his horse while he was Caesar. So that's super cool. That's where we're headed. And of course, all of that happens before the fall of those empires because they've fallen so far into decadence, which goes into a whole nother theory about how, hard times breed hard men, soft times breed soft men, blah, 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 right? So we've had all these soft times where it's super easy, and we feel like it's easy because we have cell phones and we have big TVs and we have cars. So everybody feels like everything's okay, right? So we raise these kids and we tell these kids, man, you can be anything you want, and your shit don't stink, and your ass is special, and there's never been one like it, right? Well, those kids grow up believing all that dumb shit. They've never heard no before. And when they hear no in public, all of a sudden their world is destroyed. Or they do something crazy because they're basically throwing that toddler fit that they should have thrown the first time you told them no, when they first understood the word. And then you whooped them. Like, that's just really how it's supposed to go. But we made these soft ass kids. So now we have these soft ass kids who don't want to offend anybody, and they think they're being nice. They think they're being what's the word? Empathetic. They think they're being empathetic by, calling somebody by these preferred bullshit pronouns. My son, my youngest son, he's 16, and I love him to death. He is a fantastic kid. He's got his mind like on his shoulders, like everything's right. You know what I mean? But he lives in this world. And in this world, for him, in high school specifically, they're all Z, them, they, her, she, it's, and all that dumb shit. Now, he personally doesn't agree with it, but since he's grown up in this world, well, who is he to say that they shouldn't be called they, them? I'm going to do that because I think it's the nice thing to do. I love the kid to death. But honestly, like I've tried to explain to him, you think you're being empathetic. You think you're being helpful. You think you're being kind. You're not. What you're doing is being dragged into a lie. So if you sit back and you know something's a lie, you know something's not true, but you allow that lie to persist all day, every day, and then you engage in the lie, that makes you a liar. But the pervasiveness of this evil, it makes it to where you're slowly being corrupted from the inside out, and you don't even realize it because you think you're doing something nice. People can be or think whatever the hell they want. They have the right to be as goofy as they want to be. What they don't have the right to do is have me play make-believe with them. And you can say, what's the harm in it? But at my age, I'm 44. I'm going to tell you something. I don't have time for half-truths in my life. I don't have time to play make-believe. I don't have a desire to do it either. And I don't want lies in my life. I'm 100% honest 1,000% of the time. And that's just who I am. It's who I have to be because I can't handle the bullshit. So you really want to be empathetic to somebody who thinks that they were born in the wrong body because in their mind, they think they're a girl when they were actually a boy. You want to really be empathetic to them, get them some fucking help. Because I'm going to tell you something. Hey, Nanya, what's up? You can hit that link if it's still available there. Because I'm not going to be on here very long. But I did feel like this was a necessary conversation to have. Here, let me do this. Boom, bam. I'll post it again just in case. Anybody's welcome to come up. But so here's my deal. If I'm in your life and I tell you just out of the blue, just out of nowhere, hey, this has really been weighing on me. My whole life I've known that I was actually a cat. Right? And I start mutilating my body to where I can start to look like a cat. I get them to implant some whiskers. I start like getting fur implants. I'm drinking milk from a saucer, and I want you to call me Mr. Tibbles. Listen, if you don't get me help, it means you don't care about me because I'm clearly not a fucking cat. Like, I'm not Mr. Tibbles. So that's my whole thing. All right, yeah, anytime you want, and that goes for anybody, just jump up. I just feel like people are so afraid to hurt each other's feelings, but not afraid to speak about truth when they're in those quiet moments. And all I want to do is bring those quiet moments to light. Honestly, Like the shadows is where all the bad shit happens. So if everything's brought to light, there are no shadows. And that's basically what I'm trying to do, not just with my life, but just in general and with anybody I speak with. I want everybody to just come out into the open, be who you are, unashamedly, unabashedly, even if who you are is a complete piece of shit. Like, I respect people for being their authentic selves no matter what. I have a friend who hates other people based on their race. And the thing is, he doesn't pretend like he doesn't. And I really appreciate that. Now, I think he's a piece of shit, but at least he's genuine. The worst thing in the world is somebody who's going to smile in your face and then when you leave, start talking mad shit about you over, in this case, shit that you can't even change anyway. Like, I would much rather, real friends stab you in the front. Everybody's going to hurt you in some way. The closer people get, the more they will, like, the more the opportunities to hurt you. And unfortunately, humans are selfish. So we're always going to be looking out for ourselves. And in that endeavor, eventually the people around you are going to get hurt. So everyone's going to stab you. I just say, find people in your life that are willing to stab you in the front. They're not going to hide it and then stab you in the back later. Like, those aren't your friends. So, I don't know. That was like a weird diatribe. And again, I'm out here like all by myself. I'm not going to be able to do it too terribly, like too much longer. But I did want to give anybody who wanted to jump up with me the opportunity to do so. I was really hoping Rage Nation or Mike Rage would get up in here, but he must not have seen the notification that I went ahead and jumped into the live. But I'd be willing to talk with anybody really about anything. I don't have any videos to show, not only because I'm doing it on my phone, but also because I don't really care to. You guys know what's going on. Like, you got the same opportunity to see the same information I do. The world's corrupt. Most of the people walking around aren't corrupt, but they've been corrupted. And we either fix it or this whole thing goes up in flames. So the question is, how do we fix it? And if anybody's got an answer to that, I'd love to hear it. I've got an answer for it, but nobody really wants to hear it. Because nobody wants to actually it's hard. It ain't easy because we got to take everything back. And that means that's hot war and cold war. And people aren't ready for it. People really aren't even ready for the Cold War of it. Hell, you've been in a Cold War against your own government your entire life, and you have done nothing, and you didn't even realize it, that you were in one. But your government's been working against you when you were actually supposed to be the government the whole time. If you feel like this system's working the way it's supposed to, ask yourself, when was the last time you heard anybody refer to government in the first person? Your answer is going to be never, because we don't refer to ourselves as the government. We think of the government as its own completely separate entity that is to rule over us. And unfortunately, they will until we do something about it. They're like, those people are people just like you and me. I know that they think they're special, like they think they have like a divine right to rule, but they're no different. When they wake up in the morning, they, get out of bed and fart and go take a piss and all that shit, put their pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else does. Like we're all the same. So they're not better than you. So the minute people start to realize that they're not your betters, they're not to be looked up to, that's like the first thing. That's like the first start, really. There's a bunch of starts, because you've got to have a bunch of things going, like clicking at once, in order to actually really make a difference. So you need to realize what they are, but you also need to realize what you are. You, like, go back, even if your family wasn't here during the revolution, right? Because I guess As it turns out now, something like 50% of the population's families were not here during that time. Like they're descendants of people who came later. So, but even still, somewhere near 50% of us came from that fucking 3% of guys that were like, you know what? Like, we're not going to let King George continue to overtax us. We're not going to let him keep doing this shit. And there was more than just the overtaxing, but they were like, we're going to stand up and fight. 3%. That was it. And they defeated the strongest military on the planet at the time. But here we are being taxed. Taxed isn't even the word. Stolen from in a way that makes us more slaves than any other slave in history. We pay more to our masters than any other slave has in the history of the world, and that includes biblical slaves. Look it up. You're all slaves, and we're all sitting here like, it could be worse. And I've got to watch The Big Bang Theory at 8 o'clock, so I'm not really worried about what's going on. Y'all keep doing that, nothing's going to change. And you're just going to continue to be a slave. I don't know. Once I realized that I was a slave, I couldn't be okay with it. And it bothers me, and it bothers me every single day. I don't know what I personally can do because I'm not 3% of the population. I'm just me. So I feel like the only thing I can do is try to help people and understand, like help people understand who and what they are. You are the government. You are the ruler here. This form of government was established so that there would never be a ruling class here. We've allowed them to to take that, but that's not who they are. And you're not supposed to be ruled. So at some point, we've got to stand up and not be ruled. At some point, we've got to take back our liberty. I know it sounds crazy because we don't have any. We have quote unquote freedom, but we are free roaming slaves. So you are not sovereign, and you should be. So what to do about it is a huge conversation. And again, it's not just one little thing. It's not one little start. There are many things that have to start all at once to really ignite the fires of liberty inside each of us. And I don't know that I'm the right guy to start it with everyone, but I hope that somebody hears it and decides that they want that. To say, hey, I haven't been free. You're right. I've been paying fucking, when it's all said and done, 60% of the money I earn to a government that I'm not a part of. Like, if that angers you, like somebody somewhere will hear the words I say and get that same flame. And the more people who get that same flame, maybe we can get 3%, fucking 5%, something. Enough people to fight back and say, hey, like, this is our shit. Like, you work for us. I know you think that you don't, but you do. That's my house. That's the people's house. So I don't know how we get there. Like I said, I will continue to try to talk to people. I will continue to try and give people as much education about it as I can. And hopefully enough people will say, yo, I'm done being a slave. I'm done letting people rule my shit. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like you pay more taxes than you should? If your answer is yes, that's a fucking problem. And why aren't you fixing it? Right? Why aren't you fixing it? So I don't know. And I could go into the 16th Amendment and how it wasn't ratified properly and how the federal income tax is not obligatory. But you guys probably won't believe me. But you really shouldn't be paying that federal income tax. And that federal income tax only goes to servicing the interest on the national debt. A debt that you don't owe, by the way, because you didn't decide to give those fucking banker bailouts. You didn't decide that you needed to give money to Ukraine. Like, I can go on and on about all this, like the wasteful spending. But I don't know. I think, yeah, Dakota, I do too. And same, actually, since we're having the conversation. I never have and I never will. You know, I did the math on it. There's 330 million people in the United States. If you, as a government, charged $1 a month per person. Now, per person, obviously, there are children that can't pay their own, but the parents of those children would pay that dollar for them as well, right? Anyway, that comes out to $1.4 billion a year. Can you tell me what they can't get done with $1.4 billion a year in terms of roads, schools, military, police, fire, infrastructure? Guess what? They can do all that shit, but they don't need to because all that's paid for with sales tax. So and then some. That sales tax is fucking nuts. Like, but use those numbers. That's $1 a month spread out throughout the year is 1.4 billion. What is it if you go $300 a year? Like like you're talking about almost $5 billion. And again, you don't think that could pay for everything? Of course it could. Every dollar the government spends is a dollar that you didn't get to because that's your fucking money. So, but again, okay, yeah, we're just about at that point. I haven't had anybody jump up with me, and I'm getting now to the point where I'm about ready to go home and take care of my lady. She is sick. She does have strep, so I do gotta take care of her. But everybody who came in to listen, I really appreciate you. I'll have another conversation again, and especially when I have more time. I did just have to take time out to actually talk about this shit. Again, I mean, there's only 5 people listening right now, but I mean, I don't know if any one of you 5 feel like anything I said makes any sense to you. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell. I don't generally upload videos, and I don't generally go live, especially because when I do have spare time, it's trying to work out the specifics on getting the show started with Ray and myself. Reckless Ray De Niro, go like and sub for him. Got a fantastic channel. He puts far more into this than I'm able to right now. But yeah, other than that, if you're a part of a group, I hate you. But if you identify as just a normal, regular individual, I don't care what kind of individual that is. I love you. Take care of yourselves and take care of everybody else. Peace.